Yeah, yeah, especially down in Dallas, you know, it's, I don't know if you ever tried to drive through Dallas.
Are you recording, Paul?
I guess so.
Okay. It's 4 o'clock. Do you know anybody else that's coming or anybody else not coming?
I heard from you when I lived in Karen wasn't going to be here.
Karen in Georgia, I did not expect Casey to come.
Kind of like a Charlie against the world today.
Yeah. Crickets over there.
Yeah.
I heard the crickets. Okay. Well, give it 2 more minutes and then we'll start.
Maybe that's Charlie's punishment for not putting his name on the ballot.
Yeah, so she'll over there
Not
call
being
those
to
friends.
isolate you, Charlie.
At least I'm not setting by the principal.
There you go.
That's true.
I would share that we had exceptionally good response to the superintendent evaluation. I greatly appreciate that. Everybody turned it in, except for, I haven't done mine yet. But I haven't compiled them, so I wasn't going to do that until I compiled them, because I'm going to do it on the sheet. And Casey, which frankly I didn't expect that one. So everybody else, really appreciative and fantastic. Probably the best feedback, and I never had to, I think they all had it by when you get a reminder pretty closely. Yeah, it was exceptional. I haven't looked at them yet. I need to do it this week, and I'll try to have them plenty of time for the board meeting. I will have them. Just very good sign that everybody got it done. I thought maybe they were waiting for Mr. Hetherington to come in. They were nervous. So waiting for a few more school board members, whether they show up or not.
So the people that are attending the VSBN ask for super friendly after the talk is that.
Sure. Yeah. So
You're trying to talk about what time we're going to beat them. Or...
Yeah. So I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Oh, I might. Actually, at first, like, I know people that went to school board meetings, and I was like, I'm not going. Jen and I went after state track. Yeah. That's glad state basketball number one. I like bring other friends and dance. Like, we had a good time. We used to dance a lot when we were going out.
My first year out.
Sorry. I'm going to call this Carroll County School District 2 work session to order. Hopefully a couple people show up. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hetherington, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So not a lot on the agenda here. The primary reason, if those of you didn't know, the reason we're having this work session as opposed to waiting before the board meeting next Monday was because the delegate assembly and the school board association meeting is later this week, and so we wouldn't have had a chance to discuss it, the 4 items, whether we're going to vote in favor or not in favor prior to that session. So that is the reason to do it, and it actually works out well for newly elected board members to have to take the oath of office within 10 days of the election, and so it's just handy to come and do this at this point. So. Item 3, basically, the only thing really of action is to go through these delegate assembly resolutions. Joe is our designee to vote on our behalf at the delegate assembly.
Mr. Chairman, if we could approve the agenda real quick, that would be good.
We can't take action.
I know, so really, I don't know
That's
if
why
it
I
needs to
didn't.
be. So it's
I don't know if
true,
you can't really take action.
take action,
So I didn't
Okay.
ask for, that's why I skipped it.
I
I thought
can see
about it
that,
and I was like,
you know,
take action, so
Okay.
we can't vote, so.
true, I can see that,
So it's
Okay.
Yeah, I had that thought, I was like, well, we'll skip it.
okay,
Sometimes we probably have, but that's the reason why.
I get it, okay, sounds good.
So those of you that have not been to the delegate assembly in the past, it is all different districts get a representative. Is it 1 to 5 votes? Like the bigger the district, the more votes you get. We're a small district, we get 1 vote. Big districts like Cheyenne get 5, Casper or whatever. And there's different color coded cards based on the number here.
Well, except now, last year we went to Governing Spot, which is an online thing, which we're all encouraged to work off our phones. So that, because the Wi-Fi network would have a terrible time trying to deal with 48 or 54, however many delegates there are, trying to work all at the same time. So we're all working off our phones, but it's all calculated, that vote, through the Governing Spot network, which the WSBA got a hold of me, and so I'm all set up to do this when I get there on Wednesday.
Your phone.
Through the phone.
And this might be the least number of directives that I've seen, only 4.
Yeah.
There could be some from the floor, but not terribly likely. Anyways, they generally, on this first page, the recommendations from WSBA would be to affirm 3 of them. And a lot of times they'll ask for a consent agenda. And if anybody doesn't like them, then they pull, it has to be a certain number of votes. And then they could be set aside for further discussion. And then individual consideration where they don't have a recommendation is that 2024-3. So that was, at least from the Wyoming School Board Association, was their recommendations. So let's just go through the ones on the consent agenda first, the 1, 2, and 4, and then we'll come back and talk about number 3. So 2024-1 is BOCES as an LEA to receive funding. Submitted by Teton County School District 1, Chair Keith Gingery, something like that. One or the other. Did you guys have a chance to read through it? Basically, go ahead.
I was just saying, it seems like it makes sense that they need the funding and they're always, asking for funding to keep going and to be stable. And so it was kind of, when I read it, I was like, oh, why aren't they? It makes sense that they are.
Yeah, that was the question that I had. Are our dollars or district dollars their sole source of funding right now for BOCES?
Yes. We're not talking about our BOCES here.
Oh, but
because our BOCES here is funded through the tax base of our property taxes.
Well, I think we are talking about it. Yeah, it's all BOCES.
Local and state,
Yeah.
I guess.
It just allows them
Region
to,
5.
yeah, I would think it would be both. The local BOCES, that's how I read it, local BOCES and Region 5 BOCES. Either one, that currently they cannot apply for grants because they're not an LEA, which is a local education agency.
Well, we are considered an LEA, the local
Local one
BOCES.
is,
Yeah,
And I guess
Because
that
we have
So I
applied
might
for
have to
we
grants.
clarify.
have
Okay.
received grants, I know,
Yeah,
since I've been
okay.
on BOCES, the local BOCES.
the way that I read it was also that it was talking about Region 5 BOCES,
okay.
the different BOCES that have day schools,
Right.
just that's the way that I read it versus our local BOCES.
Maybe
And I was
need to clarify it in
curious,
there.
I was also curious if Georgia had heard anything through any of her meetings about this and what was.
I
Yeah,
know Dan Mayer, the director for Region 5, has talked a lot about BOCES and not being able to apply for federal or state grants because they're not an LEA. And so that's the rationale, is that they want to become that local education agency so that they can apply for grants. I was a little bit concerned that then if you have a student there, they would get the ADM for that student, but that isn't the case. They're not going to compete for dollars for those students. They're just going to be able to apply for grants outside of what school districts get for membership from their students. So that's.
Because I believe, this is what I think, is we have had a student or two that have been up at the CBAR-V, and they're still considered our students, and yet they're up there. So, and Robin, help me out. The funding for that student would still come through our special ed from the state.
Yeah, it does currently, and I think the way that this was explained, it will continue to be that way. So like those students that we have placed, I still am a part of their team and I'm responsible for their IEP still.
Okay. So
They
this,
provide the services.
so this then would just allow them to apply for grants.
federal and state grants. It's interesting in there that it's not intended to pit school districts against the BOCES. It requires 2 school districts to sign on before they apply for a grant. So, which is kind of interesting. I mean, at some level, grants are competitive. I mean, if our BOCES, there's some level of competitiveness, but it's probably different grants they're going to put in for. Say it probably would need, this thing probably does need to be clarified that it's regional BOCES and not CCSD2 BOCES, because it doesn't say that anywhere in there.
Well, I can ask for clarification.
And that would be more if it ever came to, like, I don't know if we need it now or if it needs to be just when it would go to the legislature.
Yeah, well, this is not that it's going to be passed. This is just to plead to the legislature.
Right. So maybe let's see if somebody else, that might be something to bring up, just to see if they could clarify that to regional BOCES, because we all have BOCES.
However, will there be discussion on it if it's in the consent agenda?
Only if 2 or more school districts
Or
asked to pull it.
isn't it 5?
Or is it 5?
At least 5 districts indicate opposition.
Yeah.
Resolution.
I read 2.
You read 2?
Well,
5, it says, in the event that at least 5 districts indicate opposition, the resolution will be pulled from the consent agenda, forwarded to the delegate assembly floor for individual consideration.
that's on the very first page.
Yeah.
And then it says down below, we would need to obtain approval for 2 school districts.
Oh, that's different.
Districts.
That's for that's part of their, we're talking two different things. One is to put it off the consent agenda to individual consideration, it takes 5. If they want to apply for grants, it would take 2 school districts to sign. I'd feel better if we tried to pull it aside and just ask for it to say regional BOCES, if that's the,
Yeah.
or for clarification purposes, not necessarily to change the spirit of the
Resolution.
resolution.
Right, okay, and the way that'll work is when they first start, they will ask if there are any districts that want to pull this.
Right.
And I could be one that, but we'd have to have 4 others.
Yeah, that 4 others. Either way, if that's done or not done, anybody disagree with WSBA's recommendation to affirm it?
No.
Okay. Like clarification, but even if you were not able to pull it off, we understand the
I
intent.
don't know if it matters, you know.
Right.
And if I might take the liberty right now, is if Janet or Maria have any questions or comments, please feel free to include yourself in this conversation if you are so inclined.
We're a little lost, but we're following.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
If you need a copy, there's a couple of copies on the front desk.
Yeah, of all the resolutions.
Right here.
Yeah. Okay, so that's 2024.1. The next one that they recommended affirming is 2024.2. Compulsory attendance in early intervention first grade students.
So basically how I read this as of right now, we try to get all of our students in school, regardless of their age. But the state of Wyoming says that once you're 7, you have to be in school. But prior to 7, we really don't have any teeth in working with the county attorney, working with Department of Family Services. And this wants to put a little more teeth into, say, if you have a child in first grade, regardless of the age of 7, if they're in first grade, they fall under the same requirements for compulsory attendance, and that gives us a little more teeth in the attendance law, I guess, that we have. I think it's a good thing. We never say that you shouldn't bring your child to school once you get them enrolled. We always want them there. It's just nice to have a little backing if parents are a little bit lacking that. It's my opinion.
Well, there really isn't a whole lot of teeth in the law. Because I know, the attorneys, I believe the county attorney.
Unless they do something.
Huh?
Unless they're willing to do something. Right.
To me, it seems like it's a privilege to have a quote, free education, so people should want to provide this.
So all we're saying is if the kid is in the first grade, they need to be in school, or if they went through kindergarten, now they're in first grade, they need to be in school, correct?
Yeah, or if they haven't went through kindergarten. Kindergarten's not required.
When I was reading this, I was wondering how big of an issue is this? I mean, it must be some sort of an issue to make this impact, but is this something we fight in our district,
I would say as former elementary principal, I mean, we struggle to get kids to come to school. And I think, it begins in kindergarten, and if it comes down to turning a student in to the county attorney for attendance, county attorney won't touch it for a 5 or 6 year old. They will start to begin working with a family at 8 when their child's 7. This changes it to where we'll work with the family in first grade, regardless of their age. I mean, does it happen a lot? I would say no, but there's 1 or 2 kids every year. When I was here as a principal, it would be nice to have that backing.
And my take on this is if it is going to work, I mean, you'd rather realistically focus on the young kids than the 16 and 15-year-olds. Really, that's the ones that are not going to do anything about. Okay. Came sponsored by UNT County School District 1, Ryan Thomas, superintendent, Council Torres, chair. Okay.
So
Nobody disagrees with that?
So we're good to go with that?
Here we go.
I think so. Yeah.
As is. Okay, let's skip 2024.3 and go to 2024.4, just because it was on the consent agenda, which is elimination of corporal punishment in Wyoming public schools. Interesting that a couple districts still have it on their policy.
Well, we received that email, like what was it, like a year ago? Does anybody else remember that? We received an email about corporal punishment and that wasn't our district one of those districts.
Super.
And so I bet it's the same person that sent us that email that's like pushing this or put this together.
And you all
We
did.
did change
She had changed that. That was brought to the board in May. And it was our student discipline policy, and that line that included the word corporal punishment was removed. It was approved on the first and only reading at your May meeting.
I'm not for it, to be honest.
No, you're not for affirming it?
Yeah, I'm not. For real, it's like I'd leave it to the districts, but that's the only reason. And it doesn't seem to be a problem if there's only 2 districts that have it, and ours is one that got changed. It seems like a non-issue, but I don't know why I vote against it, it's just.
One hates to be, this is just for discussion, but it used to be when, 40 years ago, when the kid was sent to the principal's office, they not only got in trouble with the school, but they got in trouble with their parents. Now the kid is sent to the principal's office and the parents send the lawyers.
Yeah. Right.
But that's just a reflection of our society and not.
Right. And I guess my other hesitation is these things like that tend to be cyclical in nature. You go too far one way that you don't do anything. But if you want to change it back someday because there are parents that don't back it up, or there's a district that is it might have a boarding school type of facility.
Well,
I prefer to leave that up to district. I guess that's my
prefer to leave it up to the district rather than have the state mandate it.
So
But
crestfallen if you guys disagree.
we do have in our policies on restraints and different things like that, so the kid can't just go totally wild and be totally left alone to run around and create havoc.
Right.
Kind of like James said, it goes too far one way or the other, and I think we've lost that. I don't know how you'd ever implement it, to be honest with you. I was a recipient of several corporal punishments. It's in my life, so as a kid I didn't like it, but as a kid, the next time it happened, I didn't do it. But we're different.
From society now.
Yeah. But I don't think you'd ever get, if you leave it up to the districts, I don't think you'd get that implemented either. You'd have to take everybody on the board and then, it's not that I'm against it, it's just that I don't think it would ever get implemented.
So what we're saying is local control, state control.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was on the consent, right?
One, yeah.
It would have to get pulled for any discussion. You know, it's interesting because I was like, oh yeah, of course we would pass this. Like, why wouldn't we? But I do really appreciate your comment, James, of like, yeah, even though it may not be something our district wants, it is a fine line of what we give away and let other people tell us what to do. So I would tend to agree with that. But again, it wasn't it's not where I thought I was when I came out, so. But
Go ahead.
yeah, but again, it has to come out of the consent agenda and be talked about, so. Voted on.
So, I mean, only 2 districts still have this in their policy. So why would the state even have to mandate it?
What districts do you want?
It doesn't say.
I tried to look it up and I couldn't really see, but it says, no incidents of corporal punishment have been reported in Wyoming public schools in the last decade. It's not been used in the last decade, so it's kind of,
You want?
yeah, it is to me, why even bring it up?
Well, they just might be cleaning things up like we do once in a while. So.
So would you want me to vote to pull this for discussion and then discuss local and?
I think if you left it to local, and a district implemented this corporal punishment, and there being an incident, I think that district would be out there on their own and without any protection from state at all. So I don't think, I mean, unless you've got, you know.
What was it saying there, that this is the state? Wyoming School Board Association stands in opposition to the current legal protection afforded to the use of corporal punishment in Wyoming public schools.
So there is legal.
So there is legal protection, or it implies that there is. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm sorry, where did you read that?
That's in the first be it resolved. Be it resolved, Wyoming School Board Association stands in opposition to the
Thank you.
current legal protection afforded to the use of corporal punishment in Wyoming public schools. I guess in my mind too, like part of it is my kid's being a little shit. I don't expect the principal to come down there and spank him. I don't think that's the principal's job to do. But
And I
at the
don't
same
think-
time, if I want to, then I want to have the ability to do it on school grounds.
You don't want somebody trying to can or can't.
Yeah, if I think it needs done, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But that's not the school district doing it. Yeah. It's probably not, we're probably spending more time on it than it really deserves one or the other, because it's kind of mostly a non-issue.
Yeah,
So just leave it?
I would, I think that's something out of the past and just
Yeah.
let it go.
Right? It's probably mostly a non-issue. one or the other. Okay, back to the ones that they did not have a recommendation one way or the other, which is only one of them. 202.4.3 special ed graduation counts. Darren, Robin, if you guys want to comment on this, I think that would be helpful.
We spoke a little bit yesterday, I guess, but Robin, I guess I'll let you go ahead and get into it.
So how it is right now is if the student is, like, in a life skills program, or where they're not doing the normal standards, they don't get a regular diploma. We have them on a certificate track, but they count against us as a dropout. So they're labeled as a dropout even though they completed what we set up for their plan for them to complete. And so, I guess, I don't know if the kids know that, so I don't know if it's hurting them, but every year on our report card that we get from the state, it shows, we had 2 dropouts, when in reality, we didn't have any. We had kids that completed a certificate. So, the kids are doing what we've asked them to do, it's just not at the same standard as all the other kids. So I would be for getting rid of that and having them not count as a dropout.
Yeah.
So, and it says an alternative diploma.
Yeah,
So there would be something in this diploma that, as though, as an employer, you know, a kid that's very special needs, am I gonna, you know, look at his diploma to hire him or her or whatever? You know, I think it's good for the kids
yeah,
to just be able to walk on stage and get a diploma.
yeah.
Especially if they're performing the task to the best of their ability. You know, I'm with you there.
Well, it shows that they have the, like, oomph to finish something, you know,
Mhm.
persevere through it.
What's the downside to this, if there's any?
I think, when it has come up in the past, it's just that if they are counted, then some people may think, oh yes, they have a high school diploma, they're at the same level as everybody else, instead of looking at it as an alternative diploma. So just like on an application where you mark yes or no, they would mark yes, and some people may not know that it was a.
The only other one I see when I think about that is that if this is not a reason not to change it, but if this has been the practice and then all of a sudden our graduation rate goes up, we'll think, oh, we did great. Well, it might be we changed the bar as opposed to for what counts for graduation rate. But I also agree that that shouldn't count against us as a dropout, because that's not a dropout.
Right.
They've completed what they could complete in the time they're allocated to be in school. We've done what we could do. If we've met the standards for special ed, it should not count against us.
Yeah.
Or the administration. I think.
Well, like in our district, it's not a huge number. Like we maybe have one kid every 2 years that is in that situation. But for the bigger districts, it would skew their data a little bit.
I would say in my personal opinion, we affirm this one.
It's interesting to me that it was not on the consent agenda,
Yeah.
but we just wanted more discussion, or be curious to see what the discussion revolving around it is. So.
Yeah.
I mean, because as an employer, you know, looking to hire new employees, I mean, we don't look at that. We don't look at, my God, anymore, if they can fog a mirror, you give them a job because they'll be gone tomorrow, but, you know, that's not an issue.
No.
Good enough.
So affirm and get involved in the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so usually just there's 7 or 8, or there's usually twice as many resolutions. Maybe the ones that have just been waiting to get passed have got passed because they wore people down. I don't know. Time like the Indian and education one further along. Some of those that were there every year that finally got passed. While we're on it, anything else as far as just the WSBA conference, or any comments? Or?
No, I think we're gonna, the people that are going, if you guys would stay a little bit after the workshop, we can coordinate travel and things like that.
Maybe Joe, just give them just a flavor for the future for next year, what goes on at the conference.
Okay, there's educational conferences that are little mini conferences, and in the pre-conference, there's 3 this year. One of them is a new board member orientation. The other 2 that are pre-conference are proactive approach to addressing conflict, and the other one is strengthening your district leadership team. And those are good, and they start at 10 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday morning. And then the delegate assembly will start about 1 o'clock. And then after that, there's vendors up there trying to sell school districts, all kind of stuff. And those are kind of nice to go to just see who's there and collect pens and staplers and all that kind of stuff. And then we have our dinner. The school district itself will have dinner Wednesday night. Where are we having dinner at?
The ribbon chop.
Ribbon chop. And then Thursday is the full conference where we'll have speakers in the morning. I think the Indians come in and do the little dancing, and that's good. And then in the afternoon on Thursday, we have another subjects related to conferences, little mini conferences, which are good to go to learn what's going on in the educational field. And then Thursday night is the banquet. And then Friday morning is the legal updates, where the state WSBA attorney gives us information on what's going on legally, what to look for, what to be proactive, trying to address in our policies, different things like that. So that's always a good one too, the legal. Anything I'm missing, Paul?
No, you covered it.
And that's a really good thing because, number one, us local board people get to interact with each other and get to learn who we are and more than just at a meeting. And then also other people in the state we get to meet and, other school board members and confer with them what's going on in their districts as opposed to ours and different things like that. So I would really encourage attendance.
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, that is really all we needed to talk about, I think, for that topic. Unless anybody else is good. Yeah, and again, just so we can, that Joe knows how to vote, and usually the people that are there in the back, if there's any, sometimes other things come up with resolutions, so you can text and communicate, sign language.
Old-fashioned digital communication.
Digits. Yeah, okay, all right, that's it for the work session. I'll go ahead and adjourn it, and then Dana can do the oath of office to the newly elected board members. Congratulations to both.